Did you see that Carmack apparently pushed for an
Yes.
unlocked version of what was it like? What is it like, the OS or firmware? I only skimmed the article this morning when I was still groggy, but
For the
I
Rift
just
headsets.
I just thought it was super cool because the Oculus Go doesn't have to become complete e-waste the second that Facebook servers stop providing updates for it or stop making the store accessible to it. Like, something like the original Nintendo Wii, when you lost access to the Nintendo store, it's like, oh, well, that sucks. What if I just wanted to buy more content? How hard could it possibly have been to keep maintaining this store? I mean, it's not like the hardware is changing.
Yeah.
So you could have just left it on a computer in a corner somewhere. Or you could take an approach like this where you let the community take over. This is so cool. This is the first thing that Oculus, Facebook, ever since the acquisition, has done that I go and look at and I will go, wow, this is so cool. Like, as we wrote when Nintendo, oh wow, this is funny. Ars Technica even talked about Nintendo shutting down the online servers for Wii and Nintendo DS back in 2014. There's no reason that continued online support for these consoles should be at the whim of a company that obviously has no financial interest in them anymore. Exactly. They should take steps to release versions of their server code that allow players to run their own online infrastructure after the corporate servers are no longer available, because this is going to destroy entire generations of not just gaming experiences, but of computing experiences. Like, you can still go back and you can experience a Commodore 64 the way that it was experienced back in the 1980s. You can still do that. You cannot go back and experience a gaming machine, like even going back to Windows XP. Like, the fact that so many of the gaming services were online, like, you can't install Steam on it anymore. There are games that you might have bought that you can no longer run on the computer you bought them on.
Yeah.
We're losing not just, freedom as consumers. We're losing experiences. We're losing history here. And
this is a huge issue in gaming. It's the most obvious, I think, in the MMO space. Sorry, it's the most obvious in the MMO space.
Oh, 100%.
Because the second an MMO goes down, it's all gone.
Yep.
Forever, unless like a pirated community version comes online. But a lot of times those are missing
a lot of things because
elements.
they're usually trying to reverse engineer.
So they have to kind of guess how certain mechanics worked. In a lot of cases, they like a lot of the player impact, whether there was really any or not, is now gone. Like, there's a lot of issues with it. So this is cool.
Honestly, I'd like to see it be a legal requirement. If the only way to access your service that your customer buys, that they pay for, is through an online server that they run, if they shut it down,
you have to
they
publish it.
need to publish it.
That'd be really cool. I would be very enthusiastically in support of whatever that law is.
I mean, I'm sure if you're someone like an EA, for example, we can actually use this to transition into one of our other topics. You might not be super happy about that, because why would people buy FIFA 2021 if they could just keep playing FIFA 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or 2012 for that matter? Like, if they don't really care about the roster updates, and certain people will, but there's definitely going to be a financial risk to that kind of annual update business model if people can just continue to play the old games on community servers and not have to deal with the crap that comes along with playing it off of VAs.
What about dealing with I feel like we should dive down this topic a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think I immediately jumped in support of that, and I'm still in support of it, but I think there's some interesting problems in the modern world, like transactions.
Sure.
Because you're still losing content, whether you're for that content or not. I think a lot of people, especially in the MMO space, when you have to buy the game up front and then you have to pay a subscription, there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that there's also digital content stores in pretty much all of those games. But there's also games that aren't MMOs, that are server-based, that have like either microtransactions or something else.
Yeah, how do you solve that? Because
that would probably take the company developing a system that then makes those way better, because you'd probably have to make it some form of like in-game reward. which is what people want anyways. So they'd have to like improve the game,
or they'd have to
before
hand
releasing
over
it.
the keys to this transaction engine so that some third party is now making money. I mean, honestly, that's an interesting model. So basically what you do is you then say, okay, we're not going to support this game ourselves anymore, but you have some kind of reasonable, and you'd probably have to
Split or
mandate this, but you have some kind of reasonable split and someone else can take up the mantle.
and
can
you have to
basically,
like you have to share your like income records or whatever.
yeah, or
with,
what,
with the
or you have to license it or whatever the case may be. But basically you could create, I think you could create a legal framework for this that goes, okay, it could provide a number of different options, but at the end of the day, what it falls to is you have to license it to someone, and it turns into like a reverse auction. So it turns into more like a consignment store. So you price it at whatever, and then if no one will take it, you keep going down, 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 down until someone agrees to say, okay, yeah, we'll do it for that. And so you get these kind of tier two gaming companies that are ultimately kind of maintaining these older games. I think it could work. I'm
sure there's problems we haven't thought of, but it sounds super cool to me.
I'm sure there's 1,000 problems that we haven't thought of. And one of the biggest problems that we haven't brought up is that you would need lawmakers that actually understand the issues at play. And that's clearly not a thing with the number of not just boomers, but like aging boomers who just clearly have no idea what's going on in this high-tech world that we all live in, that are in positions of power these days.